You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 289. Today is Sunday, March 8th, 2015, and my name is Steve. We're back at full strength tonight as I'm joined by Hammy and Kurt. And guys, there's a lot to talk about. So in tonight's show, we'll discuss what we've seen so far in spring training, Mike Minor's injury, comments about the 2015 season from John Hart and Freddie Freeman, and we'll get into our spring training shots in the dark. But first, guys, the first big piece of news out of Orlando this spring was that Melvin Upton had a foot injury and would miss at least the first month of the regular season. So, Hammy, let's ignore for a moment that, switching to the, I would say, national consensus toughest name there is. It can only help him,
Yeah.
Do you think that this injury, this development, is good or bad for the Braves in 2015?
And I'm going to call it BJ. What's our grace period? A couple months till we get into Melvin? I'll try.
Okay, all right.
I think it's bad. I think the easy answer here is to say, any time that Melvin is not playing for us is good for the Braves. But I don't think it is if you look at it. Obviously the Braves' intention was to have him there starting the season. So, for better or for worse, there's a little bit of a regrouping for them and their plans. I think that this year, unlike maybe last year, he definitely was going to be on a much shorter leash with the Braves, willing to pull the trigger and just dump him. And now, that timeline is pushed back, and I don't think it's a month. DOB thinks it's going to be 3 months till we see him, depending on this injury. So we're sort of in limbo with Melvin again for another 3 months, and it's not something that's going to help him get better, right? The name change obviously was going to be the thing that turned it all around for him, but being injured for 3 months is not something that helps you turn things around. So I don't think this helps him if he's going to get better and contribute more. I think all of our current center field options, while promising, in a lot of ways are just as much of a question mark as he is. You've got Perez, Malik Smith, Almonte, Cunningham. There's promise there, but nothing is a sure thing. Neither was BJ. So I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. I think it's bad overall for the Braves.
Curtis, what do you think?
I guess the only good thing that could come of it is if he end up somehow out for the season or something. If it's something that really impacts him and he loses the season, that the insurance picks up a large part of his salary for this year.
Right.
So maybe that's easier for them to get rid of him. But yeah, I'm like Ham. You hope that at some point maybe they can figure something out with him. And now is the time with spring training that they could give him a lot of at-bats and he could see a lot of pitching before the season, and maybe you get some sense of an idea of what you're going to get from the guy. You hate to think that it's just going to be the same continuation of terribleness that it's been the last couple of seasons, and maybe all the work that he'd put in coming up to this, that you could have gotten something slightly better out of him, and this obviously pushes that back demonstrably. So I don't think it's good for the Braves at all. Some of these guys, like Ham says, again, there's some interesting pieces, but this is the guy that technically is supposed to be your starting center fielder. So you want to see if he can recapture even a minor glimmer of something.
Yeah, so there's a great writer for the Augusta paper. I think I mentioned him before, David Lee, writes about the Braves and a bunch of other stuff. He's a good follow on Twitter as well. He wrote an article basically saying the same thing to you guys, that this is not a good development because you needed BJ to get better, and the contenders, Hammy, like you said, I would throw Eric Young Jr. in there as well, who's probably the leading guy in it at this point, was that this is a collection of journeymen. Yuri Perez, the guy that we picked up, was DFA'd from the Yankees and the Nationals. Todd Cunningham, he's not like a top 10 prospect on the team. And it's a good point, and I get it, but what's built into that whole assumption, and for you guys too, is that BJ was going to get better. And I know it's certainly there's reason to believe maybe because you got a new hitting coach and, a new voice and maybe a different message and, of course, the powerful name change. But I just don't I don't believe it. I don't believe that BJ's ever going to recapture it. So to me, it gives him time. He'll work down in the instructional league once he gets better down the Florida league and see what he can figure out. And the timeline will be later, but we'll get 2 months of at least a replacement level player, which BJ hasn't been the last couple years. And so in theory, the lineup should be better with Eric Young Jr. in there than BJ.
Well, and it takes that decision out of Freddie's hands, which is always a good thing.
True. All right, so guys, the next big piece of news was that Mike Minor, who, do you remember all the reports when pitchers and catchers reported, was that he looked great, his motion was amazing, he said he hadn't felt this good in like a year. And then he gets scratched from his scheduled start this week with shoulder tightness. He's going to see Dr. Andrews this coming week. So he doesn't believe that it's serious. But if he misses significant time this season, how big an impact do you think this will have on the team? Kurt?
I guess it depends on which Minor you were going to get. If you're going to get Minor from 2 years ago, it would have a significant impact. If you got Minor from last year, it's not going to have as much of an impact. They've got a lot of kind of built-in pieces again. They kind of picked up a bunch of guys. Cody Martin is a guy that we hadn't really talked about or thought about at all that pitched relatively well in a spot start for him today. Yep. And is now a name that's going to be thrown into the mix too. So, but Minor, again, these guys are not Minor's peak. These guys are not at the level that he is. So, it hurts if he's back to normal and back to pitching like he did 2 years ago, because these guys are not replaceable level players for Mike Minor. But again, this is a team which we will get to farther down the road. But this is a team that I just refuse to believe. You refuse to buy into Melvin Upton Jr. I refuse to buy into Atlanta Braves 2015 that they're going to be any good. So I frankly would rather, if there's going to be some serious problem and he needs to be shut down for a while, I would rather it go run that course than they push him back to pitch for a team that isn't going to be all that great and isn't going to win a bunch of games.
Hammy, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Curtis a lot. I think that we need Minor to be good this year to even I can't even say it with a straight face. To compete. I mean, like if we were going to, our best chances lie with a healthy Minor, right? Whatever our ceiling is for the team this year, we need him to be good. We need him to be that 2 years ago Minor. And this reminds me a lot of last year. Last year, he had that surgery on December 31st. He had that weird, like lingering side effect from it. He didn't come back healthy. He was horrible essentially all season. And it feels eerily familiar to that, which I think means that we're not going to get a good Minor. If I was a betting man, I bet we don't get a good Minor this year. I think, I hate to say it, his best days are behind him. Recurring shoulder problems with pitchers is not a good thing. Going to see Dr. Andrews a lot as a pitcher is not great for your career. So I think I feel bad for him. We need him to be good, but I don't think he's going to be good for us this year. And it's gonna have an impact on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I really have a hard time believing that there's going to be good news coming out of this Dr. Andrews meeting or appointment. So, but before this went down, if I squinted real hard, I could try to convince myself, Tehran will be amazing, Wood will be amazing, Shelby Miller should be amazing, and Minor, because remember that Minor, after they skipped that start of his sort of late in the season, and he talked to Irvin Santana and he changed the grip on stuff, like his last 7 starts, his batting average against was 205 and his ERA was 3.3. Like he had figured some stuff out. And I could, with 4 really good starting pitchers and, Grilly and Johnson figured out and blah, 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 like maybe we could. On the other hand, I really can't believe the Braves, even sniff 80 wins this year, which of course won't be good enough to get the wild card anyway. And so, this season is about the kids. This season is about seeing what we have in the minor league system and seeing what these trades brought. And we're going to probably see more, right? Like you said, Kurt, Cody Martin, or, more of Folty or Banuelos. So it's not good for the 2015 team, of course, but in the long term, it may kind of work out because I don't believe we're going to see much of Mike Minor this season. All right, guys, a couple quick announcements. So all of our shows are also available on our YouTube channel, which you can find by searching Atlanta Baseball Talk. And when you find it, please subscribe. Also, we have a Facebook fan page. Go out there and like us. It's at facebook.com/Atlanta Baseball Talk. So, Hammy, it's been almost a week of spring training games so far. What are a couple key takeaways? What have you seen this week?
I like what I have seen from Jace Peterson. I think, 12 at-bats, but he's got some good numbers in terms of OBP as well as OPS, so I like that. Freeman is obviously our best player.
Good to see him hit a monster home run this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're going to see more Przinsky this season than we may have thought of. He seems to be doing well. Bethancourt, again, it's so early, and these numbers mean absolutely nothing. But I sort of wrote him off as a bench player. I just forgot the name I was going to say. Like, one of the veteran guys that we've had in the past who've just been sort of a good clubhouse leader. But I think he's going to get a lot of starts. I wish Miller had looked better against the Tigers. Shelby Miller. I wish all the starters had looked a little bit better in some of their outings. It's still early. I'm not putting too much stock into any of this, but those are some of my early takeaways.
Curtis, anything to add there?
Just a lot of these kind of guys that we brought in, not off to great starts. I mean, Przinsky being one of the ones that stands out, but on the other end, Eric Young Jr., Callaspo, Kelly Johnson, and granted this is very early on, but a lot of kind of grim, ugly-looking numbers. Some guys in the bullpen that have been completely rocked. And a lot of wildness. We saw that they
a lot of walks.
They tied a no hitter. They threw 10 innings of no hit ball today, and somehow gave up 2 runs. And the reason they gave up those 2 runs is because they walked 9 guys and hit a batter. So those are kind of concerning issues. Some of these guys that are obviously that have had some of these problems in the bullpen, perhaps we weren't going to see, but some we were. Yeah, I mean, it has not instilled me with a lot of confidence that my lack of confidence is unproven.
Wow, that was a complicated sentence.
No, it wasn't.
Well, Przinsky's been okay. I mean, Przinsky's had 3 hits and 6.
And Eric Young Jr. has a real high.
But he hasn't been no train wreck.
And Eric Young Jr. has 1 hit. It is true. His batting average, I think, is 143. However, they're certainly pimping him in the newspaper and Braves.com because his on base is like over 450 because he's gotten a bunch of walks and seeing a lot of pitches. I mean, it certainly seems like he's the front runner. It's early again, but it seems like he's the front runner. I want to just bring up Jace Peterson again. I mean, I think it's really the best news so far of the spring because Hart came out and said Peraza is not starting the season on the big club. So that was going to be Callaspo, who's okay. But, I mean, if Jace Peterson is, maybe part of the future and is kicking butt already and he, can get some starts on the big club, I mean, I think that would be great. Avilan has been dominant, which is, sort of a good surprise. And, yeah, Kurt, you'd mentioned some of the bad bullpen outings. I mean, Arodys Vizcaíno looked bad. Grilly looked bad. Although today, Jim Johnson and Outman had good outings. So, again, real early, but I think the biggest thing is Jace Peterson. And, yeah, maybe the most troubling is Shelby Miller. Yeah, no, but he's going to be really good. He's going to make up for Minor not being in. It's going to all work out.
Fantastic.
All right, so guys, from an interview last month, when asked about if this was really a rebuild year or not, John Hart replied, quote, "We held on to our core guys all winter. We never discussed them. We're not looking to run up the white flag and not compete." And then Freddie Freeman, in an interview this week, sort of gave the season an equal vote of confidence. Yeah, good guys here. We can really win. So, Curtis, do you think that Hart and Freeman are being completely truthful? Is not running up the white flag for 2015 really an accurate description of this offseason?
Well, I think Hart is coming from a business standpoint, and if he says we are mailing this season in, that will hurt their bottom line even more so than any sort of Braves fan is aware of how difficult this season is going to be. And as Freeman, I think Freeman is just being a competitor and saying he's going to go out there regardless and compete and try and do everything he can to win baseball games. All those things might be true, but I tell you, I was at my son's baseball game yesterday and was talking to a woman, and the conversation of our podcast came up, and unsolicited, one of the first things she said to me, she was a big Braves fan, she said, "Surely they're going to trade Kimbrel, right?" I mean, surely they're going to trade Kimbrel. And it didn't even occur to me today until I started reading about Jim Johnson's good outing. Is there a possibility that they're so clever that they picked up a bunch of these guys like Jim Johnson and Jason Grilli and people like that they could use as trade bait farther down the road?
That they could use them as trade bait?
Yeah, that they could use these guys, that some of these guys that have had success in the past, that have been closers, very successful closers, that a team might need somebody like that. Not just Kimbrel, but maybe Jim Johnson, maybe Jason Grilli, if those guys have good seasons going into the trade deadline. Because why do we need 7 closers on this team if we're going to win 72 games, you know?
Well, right. I mean, on one hand, Grilli and Johnson fit the mold, minus Nick Markakis, of older guys, might not be good, but we get them cheap for a short amount of time. On the other hand, I like the theory. I like the theory, though, Kurt. That if they become, if they turn into 3/4 of what they were before, they could be very interesting trade chips at the deadline.
Sure. And just an opportunity to pick up more pieces to rebuild this whole operation.
But Hart and everyone have really gone out of their way to say that they're not trading Kimbrel. But it will be interesting to see still what happens when we're out of the race potentially at the trade deadline, and if they, if the conversation starts, because it will.
And if they get in some insane offer for him.
Right, exactly. So, Hammy, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Curtis. I mean, I don't think that they're not purposely making moves so they can get a high draft pick. They're not the Sixers. I think they're going to try to put, the best players they have on their team in the best position to win every game. I think they will play hard. But I don't think they made any moves that would be a trade-off against or would jeopardize their longer-term plans. That was always first and foremost, not counting the Markakis deal, which I still don't understand and never will probably. And I really don't think, even if the Braves make a miracle move, like some sort of crazy pennant push, I don't think there's going to be other things done to help us this season. I just don't buy it. I mean, I think of course they're going to say that. I think Freeman is being as ingenuous as he can be in light of this. He's like, I'm ready for the season. We're going to go out and win. But I think he would say that any season and probably believe it a little bit more. But I don't know. I have no faith in this season.
It's a very interesting point you raised, though, Hammy. What if we're approaching the trade deadline and the Braves have the lead in the wild card, or they're holding on to the second spot in the wild card? Do they make a move to improve the team? It seems like they would. You know what I mean? Like, just from gosh, it'd be great if we sold some more tickets this season, because ticket sales are going to be pretty grim. But I mean, they're actually making a push.
They haven't made a ton of moves even when they were legitimately in the playoff hunt, right?
Well, right. But I mean, in theory, they're going to have some money. I think they have some money left over.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. It's an interesting question. I should know that. I don't know how much they have left. But, I mean, look, of course it's disingenuous. They were 29th in offense last year, and they traded away 3 of their 4 best offensive players. Yeah. And left field's going to be a platoon. Center's going to be a journeyman and then BJ.
Melvin.
Right field may be pretty good, but not great. Rookie catcher. Ancient bullpen that may turn out okay. I mean, come on. it's going to be a tough season, and it is essentially by design going to be a tough season because they rebuilt the farm system. I mean, guys, what's your look? I imagine we're going to have this conversation probably every week, at least until the regular
until we just
starts.
stop doing the show.
But pick your number. How many games? Does the team win this year, Hammy?
Less than 70. I think 70 is the ceiling.
Wow,
I think they're going to be bad. I think they're going to be bad. They're going
to be bad because no offense. I mean, is it the no offense?
Yeah, Jonah Carey on Grantland said he ranked all 30 teams. Thank God for the Phillies, so we won't be the worst in the East. He said if you gave me the Braves versus the field for the worst offense this season, I would take the Braves.
Oh my God.
And I agree. I mean, you just said it. We were 29th last year, and we lost Justin Upton, who gave us most of our productivity. Now, obviously, Freeman had a down year, but we're going to be horrible. And if Minor's hurt, and what if Shelby Miller is not very good?
Yeah.
Right? What if none of these journeyman guys show up for us? What if Tehran comes down to earth a little bit? What if Alex Wood comes down to earth a little bit? I mean,
I feel the Alex Wood one's a little more likely than the Tehran one, but I hear you.
Still. I mean, Tehran can't carry one team, right? So I feel like this. I hate to say this, and I can quickly on other days be like, turn all those ifs into positive ifs, and maybe we are right there at the All-Star break. I don't think so. I think it's going to be a long haul this year. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a good seasoning. We're going to see a lot of young players getting opportunities, but we are not going to compete this year.
Curtis, what's your number?
Like 72, something like that.
Yeah, I'm at 73. I mean, for all those reasons.
Yeah, and there's like a thing that even at the height, if every conceivable thing that could go right for the Braves went right for the Braves, I still don't think they're very good. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see that. One, that the offense, I do not see that the offense is not atrocious, and maybe we'll all be delightfully surprised. But I just refuse to believe, even if we have some amazing seasons from some rookies, maybe Jace Peterson comes and has an amazing season. At some point, he's going to hit the wall. He's going to get figured out, and all those numbers are going to fall back to earth. There's lots of platoons. I mean, are we going to get anything out of Chris Johnson?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if Chris Johnson and Andrelton get back to anything close to 2013, that would change the offense. And if the left field, see, this is where I go. Like, I can do it. Yeah. And if the left field platoon, I mean, Gomes, and then whoever's going to bat against the righties. Boy, and then if Eric Young Jr., could just get on base a lot, and we use his speed, and Markakis goes in the rejuvenation machine,
And all those old pitchers somehow regain even an ounce of what they had
right, exactly.
in their highlight
Avilon stays good, and Outman's, what we
Freddie,
think he might be. And
Freddie's not our manager.
The starting pitching obviously is going to be a concern, especially if we're down Minor.
Yep.
And we're going to have to start two guys that maybe we don't want to. Fultz, isn't that his name? Didn't he have a
Stoltz?
decent
Stoltz, yeah.
Sorry, Eric Stoltz. I love his work.
Yep.
Great.
Great in Mask. But these are guys that all of a sudden you got to rely on that other teams don't have any interest in relying on them.
Yeah. I really do hope that Fultonowitz, I think that's right. I do hope that Fulte makes the starting rotation, just because that's the stuff that's going to be interesting to watch this year is Fulte and Jace Peterson and Markakis, frankly, just to see how what good. It's going to be watching the kids is going to be a lot,
and that's
fun.
What they should do. That's absolutely what they should do. I mean, if you're going to be bad, at least give guys experience. And I'd be curious to see if Betancourt cannot hit his weight, how much, like Ham was talking about, how much Brzezinski are we going to see? But how much Brzezinski should we see? I mean, even if he's hitting 350, don't you still want to see what Betancourt can do over the course of a season?
Yeah, but I think that you can give him, 2 2 days off out of every 5
Of course,
instead of
no,
one,
I'm not,
and
yeah.
it's just better that way.
Sure, of course, absolutely. But, I just don't want to get to the point where all of a sudden we're trotting out all these retreads, where the whole starting lineup, save a couple of carryovers from our team last year, are all these guys that are has-beens and wash-ups, I mean, I would rather it be a bunch of guys out there that are young and we're getting an idea of potentially what we could have. I mean, Cunningham, even Terdoslavich, he's having a nice spring so far. Give the guy an opportunity one more time. I mean, we've kind of loved some of these guys that pop up in the spring and we're always like, why don't they ever give this guy a chance? And maybe it's because they can't perform on the major league level during the regular season, but why not?
Well, and I think the scenario you paint, Kurt, we will see more likely in the second half than the first, that they will try. They will try their darndest. And if that's a lot more Przinski than Betancourt, or, a lot more Gomes than Zolio Almonte, then they'll do that. But I think that come the second half, if they're really out of it, hopefully that scenario plays out.
And then you'll have these guys in place to kind of lend moral support to these dudes as they're getting their brains beaten in and say,
exactly.
This is just part of it and you're a pro and keep working at it.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's finish up with a spring training version of Shot in the Dark. So, and I think this would be a good time, by the way, for me to remind you guys that my off-season Shot in the Dark was completely right. That Upton and Hayward are gone and we're stuck with Melvin. Okay.
You said BJ, though. You didn't say Melvin.
That's true. Yeah,
That's
good
true.
point. Good point.
Technicality trips you up again.
All right, Curtis, what do you got? What's your spring training?
I think the first one is that the Braves have spent more on jersey lettering than any team in the history of baseball. There's more long names on this team than anything I can ever remember. I'm going to say that Cunningham makes the team and maybe even gets some starts early in the season.
All right. Hammy?
We talked about this. I think Jace Peterson is our starting second baseman on opening day.
All right. It's early in the season, so I'm not going to criticize your Shot in the Dark yet, because we're all getting our work in. It's spring training.
What's your criticism?
I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty easy. I think that all indications are.
All right. So I'm facing AAA pitching.
All right. So mine is that Johnny Gomes is going to hit righty so well this spring that he's going to get named the starting left fielder. There's going to be no platoon. Flying in the face of what you want to have happen, Kurt.
Blurch. That's how I respond to that.
But, I don't know if we talked about this on the show. I know I tweeted about it. I'm excited that they signed Johnny Gomes because that's not the kind of guy that they sign, the Braves.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was pretty pumped about that.
Well, it's a lot like Hinsky.
Yeah, but more fun and wacky than Hinsky.
That's who I couldn't remember earlier about.
Oh, yeah.
Hinsky.
Yeah. All right, guys, that is the show. So, folks, we'll be back to our weekly Sunday night schedule soon. Please make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, as well as on iTunes or Stitcher, so that you don't miss any of our shows. As always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk, and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit the problem.